morning, everyone, and welcome to the ODPP Café. My name is Anita Onuko, your host for the show. The show is brought to you courtesy of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. The show is meant to inform you, to educate you, to tell you what to do when you're in conflict or in contact with the law, or sometimes just help someone who is in trouble. We welcome you to join us on Facebook. We are live at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Kenya. We are also on YouTube live at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Kenya. And follow us on Twitter as well at ODPP_KE. Karibu sana, and I hope you get to learn something from the show today. As always, before the show starts, we give you a roundup of the courts. And the disclaimer is usually that it's not exhaustive. It is just a highlight of what happened in the courts this week. And I will start with the first case. It's about a police constable in Mombasa who was charged afresh with with alleged murder. An administration police constable has been charged afresh before the Mombasa High Court for the alleged murder of a civilian in 2018 in Mwenza village, Likoni. Yunus Athman Ali denied the murder charges leveled against him before Lady Justice Anne Ongijo. Mohammed Karega Kasim, Ali's co-accused, is now a prosecution witness and will now testify in the trial. So this is a case that happened in 2018, and this constable is facing murder charges for the murder of a civilian. The constable, this is just a repeat. So his co-accused, Mohammed Karega Kasim, is going to testify as a prosecution witness. So that happens a lot. Maybe he has information that will help the case. The other case is about a fugitive in Mombasa again, who is facing a fresh 7-year jail term. The fugitive, who escaped justice 9 years ago, will now face a fresh 7-year jail term handed down to him in 2014. Safari Sharif Pombe had escaped shortly after being convicted for shop breaking and committing a felony. Wow. So he has to go back and face the time that was served to him then. He had been convicted then by Mombasa SRM Honorable Richard Ondenyo. The sitting SRM Honorable Rita Aurora ordered that the accused immediately start serving the 7-year jail term, which he would have finished in 2021 had he started it in 2014 when it was handed to him. So this one, the law finally caught up with him. The other story that we had from the courts is a win for prosecution when the High Court convicted the 3 police officers and a police informer for the murder of lawyer Willie Kimani, the human rights activist, and his client Josephat Mwendwa, and the taxi driver Joseph Moirori. There was a 4th policeman in the case, Leonard Mwangi, who was acquitted. So delivering the long-awaited verdict, Justice Jesse Lasset singled out Lele Man for acting in flagrant abuse of his office as a police officer and masterminding the murder. If you've been following the news, this has been quite a story because of how this was executed, but finally we get to hear the ruling of the court. So Leleman was the first accused. The second person accused was Stephen Cheburet. He was sentenced to 30 years. Leleman was sentenced to death. The third accused person, Sylvia Wanjoi, was sentenced to 24 years. And the 5th accused person and the police informer, Peter Ngogi, was sentenced to 20 years. So I think I saw the family thanking the courts for finally delivering justice to their loved one and for them just putting a rest to the case. And finally, just a bit of what has happened, some activities at the ODPP. So this week, the DPP was hosting a delegation from the Federal Republic of Somalia. The AG and his team were in the office here on a benchmarking tour. The AG is Mr. Suleiman Mohamud, and his team were here. They were taken through the e-learning system. They were taken through to PTI for a tour. They were also taken through the performance management system that tracks staff performance and sets KPIs. And they were the Lifu case management system. They're very keen on having this done in their country, and the ODPP, of course, the DPP promised to give them technical support and expertise should they need to start on this back home. So they've been on a tour in Kenya, and they explored other ways of strengthening the existing relationship between the 2 agencies and the 2 countries through better cooperation, information sharing, and enhanced coordination. They also visited the Kibera's ODPP children-friendly interviewing rooms, which also just help children, the justice system prevent children from secondary victimization as they go through the justice process, either in conflict or in contact with the law. So those are our stories from the courts, and like I said, not exhaustive, and of course some activities from ODPP. So this is the ODPP Café show. Karibu sana. We are here to discuss we were observing the anti-FGM week alongside other partners and like-minded organizations in the world. It's a UN observed day, and this year's theme was men against FGM, rather to either encourage men to participate in the fight against FGM or to also understand what they've been doing in the fight against FGM. So all the time we talk about women, and of course because it is women who undergo FGM, but we've had women guests who talk about this practice and how harmful it is. But today on the show I have two gentlemen who are going to talk about FGM, and I'm very glad that they're two gentlemen, and I get to understand the role they play and how they have been doing this over time. And just to tell you that they actually do something in this to stop FGM in this country. So as always, I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves and to tell us what they do and how they do it, and of course where they do it from. So karibu sana Tony, and just let us know who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much for having me this morning. My name is Tony Mwebia. I am the founder and executive director of Men and FGM Foundation, which is an NGO that works on eradication of female genital mutilation, other harmful cultural practices, as well as other forms of sexual and gender-based violence. So we basically work in West Pokot and also in Samburu, and we have also been training male champions in more than 12 counties, which are marked as hotspot counties for FGM. So far we have around 450 male champions trained by organizations across those counties. And when I talk of male champions, I mean we target the men who have platforms. So we work with teachers, we work with chiefs, we work with elders, we work with imams, we work with the men who have platforms to be able to share this information or disseminate it to the community without requiring extra resources. So when did you start? So the organization came into being around 2019. So we have existed from then, and we have been implementing. But the old story of the organization dates back to around 2012, when I went to do some volunteer work with refugees, to be specific, with an organization called IAS Refugee Trust of Kenya, and they do resettlement. And what happened is that UN thought it was necessary to sensitize the refugees of the new law, which is the provision of Anti-FGM Act, which was passed in October of 2011. So to cut the long story short about my getting into this work, so what happened is we went one day to Isili to do sensitizations. Before then, yes, I come from male community where the prevalence of FGM as per KDHS 2014 was 31%. We are waiting for them to analyze the current KDHS. But coming from a family of 4 boys and 1 girl, my sister did not undergo FGM because I will say we were somehow among the privileged in the society. My mom being a teacher and my dad being a professional chef back then. So FGM was not practiced in our family. So yes, I had other people talking about it, but when I came and also in the university and come across it as an harmful cultural practice, but I never taken keen interest on it. So this day, when we went to Isili to do the sensitization, I did a moderation for the men dialogue, because we used to walk around with people for psychosocial support. We and a lawyer, we and a doctor to talk about the medical effects and everything. So I sat down with these men, the Somali men from Somalia itself, not the Somali. The real Somalis, the refugees. And back then I was this young man, so we sit down and they started opening up about their experiences with FGM. And I will just quote or mention a few things that I came across that day. So they spoke about how they could not enjoy sex with their wives, and they were being forced to look for commercial sex workers within the Isili region, community, to enjoy sex with, because every time they tried to touch their women, because of the trauma that most of their ladies went through as young ladies when they were going through FGM. It's like it didn't work.
Yeah, they have PTSD.
Yes, yeah. So they're stressed about it, and it brings back the memories of FGM.
Yeah.
Then they're also speaking about how the little stipend they were getting from UN, they were using it every now and then to take their spouses to hospital every now and then because of complications. And then the most touching story for me was man who shared how they're coming from Somali to Dadaab refugee camp. We all know that in between is a jungle, and the wife is pregnant. She has undergone the worst form of FGM, which is type 3 fibrillation, and then she goes into labor pains. So there is no medical doctor in the bush, so it's just a traditional birth attendant. And what happened is they struggled to deliver this baby like the whole night, and by the time they did it, the lady bled to death. And then a day after, the baby also passed on. So for me, listening to all those stories and having just been brushed into this project as a project assistant, and having done a lot of reading and research on the same, and there was little material talking about engagement of men and boys in this conversation. So when the project came to an end, I got an offer to work with them as an accountant. I'm also a qualified accountant, CPA. But I chose because I had gotten a job with the Child Welfare Society of Kenya, which is a parastatal, to go and work as a social worker, which is my background in the university, to work in Korea. So because of the touching stories, I decided just to go to Korea other than pick a job in Nairobi. So I went to Korea to open the new office. And in 2014, it's when now I came face to face with men armed with machetes and everything, dancing and protecting the girls in Korea from the police. You know, they protect the girls from the police. From the police arresting the cutters. So they escort them and sing and dance
to ensure that it's
publicly,
done.
Yeah, to ensure that the police do not come and arrest them. So after that encounter in Korea and being a government official, I thought, and all the knowledge that I gained around working in Nairobi, I thought rather than wasting it, let me just go online and start sharing the information and also challenging the systems and people working around enemy FGM on why they were not having men in this conversation. So that's when I joined Twitter. If you go to my Twitter, which is my name, Tony Mwebia, I joined in 2013, and
the campaign started then.
It was about challenging hashtag men and FGM, asking why we are not having men since 2013. And to cut it short, I continued working with the government. I left the government, and then I started doing other things. But all the time, people did not understand why I was talking about this until around, I remember around 2018, I was invited by UNFPA when they were doing their planning for 2018-2022 project plan, and then they were able to have engagement of men and boys as one of the key thematic areas. We have also been able to have it in the national policy on eradication of FGM 2019. It's one of the key aspects. Also, the UN and everyone right now is keen on the engagement of men and boys in this conversation. I'm also happy that the former president Uhuru, I was recognized in 2019 as a national hero for the work that I've been doing, and also in 2021 for the second time as a young person in this conversation. And yes, we are now a big team, and we are taking the conversation across the country, and I'm happy that everyone is right now seeing the
talking about it.
This conversation.
Yeah, let me bring Victor in the conversation. Victor, please introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Victor Preston Owur. I work with the ODPP. Currently, I'm based in Garissa. So I've been working in Northeastern. My first posting was in Wajir. Then I later on moved to Garissa. So from the statistics, you'll notice that Garissa remains the leading county in the practice of FGM. The most recent statistics puts it at about 94%.
94?
Yes, which is a very big figure.
It's quite big. Is it because of religion, culture, or both?
You see, FGM is deep-rooted.
Yeah.
There's some aspects of misconceived religious practices, there's some aspects of culture, and there's also that aspect of trying to gain acceptance. It's something that is so deep-rooted, it's caused by various issues. But maybe just a brief story of myself.
Yeah.
You see, personally, I was born and raised in Siaya. And in Siaya County, FGM is not practiced. In fact, FGM is something that I first heard of, I think, in high school. It's something I'd never imagined is happening. I only knew of circumcision. Of men, yes.
Yeah.
So when I started hearing about FGM, I didn't even know how bad it was. I thought, okay, maybe it's just something simple. It's something that does not have any complications, until I was posted to Wajir. That's when I started interacting with ladies who undergone FGM.
Yeah.
I remember the first case that I handled, we were going to a place called Habaswein. It's a mobile court. And I was going to prosecute a case of FGM. So I was having a discussion with one of the court clerks.
Yeah.
And she asked me something, why are you people so bitter about this practice?
Is she from there?
Yes, she's from there. And I told her, you know, this thing is very bad.
Yeah.
You see, by then I still did not know how deep-rooted this thing is.
Yeah.
Then she told me, okay, you just do what you want, but personally, I will do it on my kids.
Oh.
And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
there's a problem. So right now, the ODPP, our role is not just prosecution.
Yeah.
We are also trying to sensitize members of the public. In fact, the ODPP has come with various tools on FGM. If you look at the SOPs on FGM, then we have the RRGs.
Yeah.
If
You know,
go
we don't
them-
even know what RRG means.
Oh, RRG means Rapid Reference Guides.
Yeah.
And then the SOPs means Standard Operating Procedures.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you look at the SOPs, the main aim was to bring uniformity, just to standardize how FGM cases are handled and prosecuted in court, and also how to deal with victims. Because you see, in as much as we're prosecuting somebody for FGM, there's someone somewhere suffering.
Yes.
You must also know, where do we take this person? SOPs, again, are to enhance collaboration with various entities. FGM is not something that you can just win as one body. The ODPP alone cannot win it. You have to interact with
the community,
other organizations that also help in the same fight.
Yeah.
Then with the RRGs, what they do, they help in making the decision to charge. If you read through them, they will tell you the offense. There are various offenses in the FGM Act.
Yes.
But now the RRGs have simplified them. So if you face the situation, you look at the evidence, then you can refer to the RRGs to see the best offense that you can charge in, the best evidence that you need, and maybe there are various areas to be covered, because the RRGs will tell you, for this offense you need to prove this, this and that. So you'll be able to advise investigators to collect evidence on those areas. Yeah, so
How are victims treated in this whole prosecution process? Because I think there's so much focus on the perpetrator.
Yes.
And we don't get to hear about the victims. What happens to them? Are there reparations for them? Are there compensation? Because I know you cannot restore, but then what happens to them?
So on this, I'll just speak about my personal experience and what I do. So in Garissa, when we are faced with such situations, because most of the victims are minors, they're children, the first thing that you should do is to take them to a facility where they can be counseled and where they can be guided. So in Garissa, we have Garissa Rescue Center. That's where we refer them to. Because one of the reasons why we do that, the perpetrators of these acts, some of them are their mothers, grandmothers.
So what happens really, Victor? What happens when you pull me away from my family to take me to Garissa Rescue Center? Then what happens? Do I still go back home?
You see, it's a challenge, but it's also important in that we do not want a situation where this potential witness is interfered with. We also want this witness, if at all she needs some treatment, then she can easily access it, as opposed to taking at home. Because the risk with taking them back home, FGM is practiced in secrecy.
Yes.
So even if there are complications, they'll be very reluctant to take them to hospital because they don't want it to be known. So that's why it's important to at least isolate these children, take them to a place where their welfare can be taken care of as you proceed with the case. Once the case is done, or once they've testified, then you can reintegrate them back with their families.
Wow, Tony, is that a challenge? I read it as a challenge because they have to go back the same people they've complained about. So what happens? What do you tell them on the ground?
Allow me to say this. You know, we are the ODPP.
You are safe. Don't worry. Don't worry. You're safe.
I'll just begin by saying that laws alone cannot end FGM.
Yeah.
And FGM cannot end without proper laws and policies. So it's like a confusion. So we need the laws on one hand, but the laws alone cannot do it. So what we need to do is do more sensitization, and as my colleague here said, in terms of the confusion when it comes to handling of the victims, yes, I know he said that no one does FGM to their daughter to have them suffer. That's the reality. People do it out of love. To them it's love, to them it's a culture.
What love, Tony?
Yes, to them it's culture, to them the mama, this is what I mean by love. The mama makes sure that the girl undergoes FGM because they have been told that she will be more respected in the society.
She'll get a partner.
She will get more dowry. She will get more suitors.
Yeah.
She will be now a grown-up woman. The family will be, the honor of the family will be bestowed.
Yeah.
So they do not do it as to them
as punishment.
Yes, as punishment or wanting their children to suffer. That's a thing we need to understand.
So what do you tell those women, Tony, in your in your grassroots campaign? What do you tell them?
So for us to have this conversation, or what we tell these women, we do not go there demonizing them or making them look like they're stupid. We have to get an entry point of where to begin having this conversation. And it's not always about the negative effects of FGM. What we do in our sensitization or the way we approach it, we go to the communities and do a holistic community visioning, like trying to understand what affects the society in itself. The women will talk about having lack of access to water. They will talk about not getting the food and everything. So we try to have conversations about all these things, and then at the end of the day, what happens is that FGM and child marriage will come up as one of the challenges that we're facing. So by us having the conversations about other issues, they are able to understand that we are not here just to speak about FGM or child marriage, because as he said, FGM is not a standalone issue. There are so many other factors that contribute to it. For example, we are talking about climate change, we are talking about all these other things that intersection with FGM and gender issues. So you find out when the drought comes and the animals die, the families are likely to subject their daughters to FGM, prepare them for animals. So the girls just become like a commodity or something of the sort. So what we do is we have the conversations, deeper conversations, not only on FGM but also other
society issues.
And that way, the women are able to understand us, and the men also are able to understand that we are not coming to attack the culture, but we are coming to find solutions, not only for FGM and child marriage, but also other issues that are affecting them. Because
I'm just thinking about how FGM, it's so deep rooted, like Victor is saying. It's culture, like we found it, like you're saying earlier. Even possibly those ahead of us thought they're going to end it then, and it still exists. I'm not sure we can change culture. Can we?
I think we can, because culture is not culture is always changing, depending on the.
But why is this one so stagnant? Like it doesn't just change; it even becomes better. I was telling you how even the learned people now come from wherever they stay. Those who've emigrated, they come back and do it.
Remember, the statistics have been going down. We just came from 21% in 2014. The recent KDHS, which is 2022, we are at 15%. So though the analysis has not been done at the community level to understand which county stands at what point, it shows that the numbers are going down. Also, we might think that we are not making any change, because back then, remember, we are normalizing now the conversation around ending FGM. ODPP 5 years ago, I think, or so, did not have this cafe whereby they were speaking about FGM. So there is much talk about the FGM and the media and everything, and everyone is having the conversation around the same. So we might think that we are not making any steps because there's a lot of attention now on FGM. Any case that is up there is being amplified on social media, it's going on different platforms, and people are talking about it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that we are not making any steps.
The strides have been made.
Strides because of the media attention, but now the conversation is being normalized around FGM, and I believe we're in the right track. But what we need to do is make sure that we go more to the grassroots, have more dialogues. We cannot stop dialoguing because this is a social and gender norm. It cannot. It takes time to change. It cannot change overnight. As I said, laws alone will not be able to do this. We need to dialogue. We need to have this conversations day in, day out. And what we also need to do is have this conversation at the family level, which is the basic unit of the society. We need not wait for NGOs. We need not wait for Tony. What are you doing as an individual?
As an individual in your own space.
In your own space. Are you having this conversation with your own friends? Let's normalize it. Because some people will say that I come from a community which doesn't perform FGM. But this is what I always tell everyone. You never know, FGM will be in your door next without you knowing. For example, you are a young man out there, you go meet someone in the university, you fall in love with them, or your son or someone in your family, and well, people are moving around. There's a
way to get you, to get to you.
And then FGM will be next in your door. You thought my community doesn't practice FGM, my family doesn't practice FGM. It's not my issue. So we need to make it an issue for all of us.
We need to talk about it often.
Talk about it and normalize the conversation.
Yeah. Victor, are there alternatives to justice in FGM cases?
You see now, like for instance, ODP encourages ADR in certain issues. But if you remember in the fight against FGM, we've been specifically directed not to encourage ADR. And the reason being, we are trying to put an end to it. The moment you you want to negotiate this issue with the society, then they may not stop it. They could even embrace it more. Because just like my colleague has said, Tony, we need to be more proactive in the fight against FGM than reactive. Prosecution alone cannot help.
Yeah.
And even you can look from the statistics. Just like at Garissa, it's about 94%.
Yeah.
But how many cases do we have in court? Right now we just have one case. Just a single case.
People don't want to report.
Yes, what does that tell you? FGM is being done, but no one is reporting it.
Yeah, maybe now justifies the statistics you read there.
So what we need to do, let's do more sensitization. Let's talk to the women. Let's talk to the children. Let's talk to the men.
Yeah.
Because I have realized that in most of the forums that I've attended, children are not invited.
What do they say, Victor?
We need to hear from them. We need to teach them about FGM. Because they are the people who will undergo this cut. Children could have a say. A child would tell the mother, no, I don't want to do it. Maybe she could persuade the mother or the father that this act is not good. We are taught that it has this and these effects.
Maybe
and the mother may just accept.
Yes.
So we need to talk to the children as well. Let's not leave them out. They're the victims.
All right, let's go back to the theme. So why is it important to engage men in this conversation? When I read this theme, I thought this is just another chance for men to do what they do very well in this society. They do that mansplaining thing. They want to explain a woman's problem. So why do we need men to talk about this? Then again, Tony, and I know you're a champion, most of this, if you listen to women talk, those who practice FGM, they say they do it for the man. They do it for their marriage. They do it for society. And society is patriarchal. It's men. It's a man's world. So why do you feel like we need to talk about this?
Thank you so much for that amazing question. I'll just begin by saying this. The moment we make FGM a women's issue, that's where we go wrong. Let's talk about FGM as a human rights violation, period. It has nothing to do, let's not make it between men and women or what. Yes, I know it affects the women, but the reality is this. This is one fact. FGM is done by women on women. Okay?
By women on women?
By women on women.
Okay.
I am all the counties that practice FGM apart from Mandera. I am yet to come across any traditional kata, because we might talk of medicalization whereby medics might be a man. I am yet to come across any community where we have traditional kata. Okay? In fact, in most of the places, Men are not even allowed, in most of the communities, are not allowed to hear the people celebrating or just dancing and doing their things. They provide the resources for the ceremony, but they do not partake in the actual cutting, so they have no idea of what happens.
But it's done for them, Tony.
Thank you so much. That is why it can never be a women's issue. Because yes, I think that I put that, it's not, yes, it's right for you're saying it's a women's issue, it affects the women's body, but it's not, it's a societal issue. It's not only a women's issue, because at the end of the day, the men are here providing the resources. Again, it's done for them, because if you look at all the reasons for FGM, I am challenging everyone who is watching, and even you people, to just go and do your own research and find out about all the reasons, directly or indirectly, point to increasing marriageability of the girls.
But so, who makes marriageability such a thing?
Much. So that's why we need to have them in this conversation.
Good.
If we said, if the men woke up today in the practicing FGM practicing is gone forbid, and said that we will not marry any woman who is cut out there, this practice will stop. But we are not saying we say this, because we have been cut and it was they were subjected to this thing. They did not understand the consequences of the same. So we will be doing double stops. Okay. Also, if we look at the different positions that men hold in this society, as we were talking earlier on, I was looking at the former parliament of 2017 elections. In a county like Wajir County, there was no elected MCA lady, just nominated, and Mandera. All of them were men, 100% elected. So, if we have to allocate resources to FGM interventions in these counties, trust me, we need the voices of the men. We need to sensitize them. We need them to understand why we need them. If you look at, I'm a Catholic, if you look at my church, all the priests and everyone, they are men. So if we have to get any breakthrough platform, we need to have men in these conversations. Look at even the composition of the national parliament. Look at the magistrates and all these people. They are brothers to these survivors and victims of FGM. So there's no way we are going to have this conversation without having the men in the conversation. And as I said, let's stop making this issue about women. Let's make it a human rights violation, because sometimes when we say it's a women's issue, yes, we know deep, yes, that's the right thing, but what it does, it becomes a motive, because the women are like, the men are like, here they come again, another women's issue, and that changes the whole thing. But if you just sit down and say this is a human rights issue, it as a violation of people, let's look at it as affecting the rights to health, education, and all these things, then the conversation might be different and will be different.
I think you're right. You need to write a paper on benefits of positiveness of patriarchy.
I wanted to add. You see, there's no doubt that.
Sorry, Victor, because you've just gone out explaining why men should deal with our issues, and we have not been able to do it well until you come in. And I think for me, it doesn't really ring very well, but it is. It is maybe the truth. Yeah.
Well, so I was saying there's no doubt that FGM is being done for men. But the question that I usually ask myself, what benefit do men derive from FGM? Because the same men who want these women to undergo the cut complain that they are not enjoying sex with their partners because they are traumatized based on what they went through. So I think men have been very unfair to women in the fight against FGM. They want them to undergo something. If a man gets a woman who has been circumcised and he wants to marry her, and he says, I will marry you whether or not you are circumcised, she will not undergo that cut. But what we have at the moment is a situation where there are women who evade the cut until the time of marriage. Then when it gets there, the man insists that before she can be married. It's so sad. I've seen a situation where children are being mocked
for not undergoing
the cut. Yeah,
even women are mocked for not undergoing the ritual. Yeah.
And who are these people mocking them?
Fellow women.
And men as well.
And men.
Yeah. Because they tell you are not pure.
Yeah.
You've not undergone the cut, you are dirty.
You had talked about various types of FGM, and I think there's a preference. I don't know. So what are these types of FGM?
You see, we have 4 types. of FGM. We have the type 1 that involves the cutting of the clitoris. Then we have, it's called clitoridectomy, I think that's the term. Then we have the type 2 that is called excision. I think that involves the cutting of the labia minora. Yes, and the majora. Then now we have infibulation, which is the type 3. It involves the narrowing of the vaginal orifice. And I think it's so bad because it can include cutting of the labia majora and the minora, and then they stitch it. There's a way in which they stitch piercing. You see, FGM is something that you can do on yourself. We have women who pierce their genitalia.
Themselves.
That is a form of FGM, and they probably don't know it. So, from my interaction with the community, especially in Garissa, it seems like they are trying to embrace type 1. Yes.
Yeah.
I was in a training recently. It was a meeting organized by Red Cross, and we asked the ladies to at least tell us what they think about FGM. And they were saying it's not bad.
Who are these ladies? From the locals?
From the locals, yeah. Some of them said that. But I think they're saying that because they feel that, and they're trying to avoid the other forms which seem to be too bad to them. But remember, all forms of FGM are illegal. All of them are bad. All of them should not be done. There's a term that they used among the Somali community. I think it's called Suna. Suna means, then you realize that it's the type 1 FGM that they're talking about. Just a slight cutting of the clitoris, which is still an offense.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So does the legal framework support the fight against FGM? Are we going to see an end to it? Or are there still loopholes in the legal framework?
Both the laws of Kenya that we have in Kenya, the regional instruments, and even the international instruments, according to me, that can help in the fight against FGM. But what we lack is proper sensitization and implementation.
That's right.
Yes. So I think with sensitization and implementation of the various laws that we have, we can win the fight against FGM.
Yeah. Tony, what is the challenge? Why are we not winning this despite sensitization? You talk about doing this from 2013 to date, and you've trained, what, 450 champions?
Yeah.
So why are we not still getting there? Why are we still struggling to end this thing?
Thank you so much for that. Before I answer that, I need to add something on the previous question. Allow me to say that, as I said, we need to stop saying FGM and women's issue and making it an issue between men and women. Because why I'm saying this, I have been able to interact with so many people in different positions working on an example. I want to get men out of this equation. I have friends who are working on them with people working in serious organizations, even UN agencies and other NGOs. And then what has been happening is, because they are not survivors of FGM, the survivors feel that I have a very serious case with one of the organizations. As I said, I've been interacting with people. I have a friend, I'll mention him, working in an international organization, working in more than 10 countries in Africa. And they're literally feeling, it's a woman, but she's literally feeling that she's being accepted by the others, because most of them at the end of it are survivors in the project, and they feel left out. So sometimes we need to understand the issue itself and deal with the issue, because sometimes, allow me to say, when women sit down and we make it between women and men, then the women say it's body autonomy, it's our right, we have the right to, men should not be in this conversation, it is our body we are protecting, it's not about pleasing men, it's not about sex, it's not about all these things. Then when the women sit down themselves and there's a survivor and there's someone who is not a survivor, then it turns out, what does she know about FGM who went through it? So what is she doing here? So that's why I'm saying,
human rights.
Let's talk about this issue as a human rights thing. Otherwise, the more divisions when we sit down the survivors, someone will say, but you underwent clitoridectomy, type 1, which is minor. I went through infibulation. We will never be at parity if we bring these differences. Let's talk about FGM as a human rights violation. Let's come with solutions on how we can be able to end this practice. Let's not focus on on things that will continue dividing us, other than focusing at the goal of ending FGM. Now, the other question that you asked about, why are we still stuck here and having done the sensitization for many years? I said FGM is a gender and social norm. And to change norms, we need time. We need time to dialogue with the people. We need time to have conversations within one day, because this is something that is deep rooted in people. You talked about people coming from out there abroad and coming to perform FGM. It doesn't mean that FGM ends when you go abroad. You go with your culture.
Still come back
it's
with it.
in your culture. If you still conform to the culture and you don't want to have the sanctions that come with the social norms, then you find yourself coming back to practice FGM. As I said again, let's own this process. Let's personalize it. Do what you can do in your own position, in your own circle, within the people that you have. Let's amplify this message about ending FGM as much as we can, even without the resources. We have people in Chamas, we have people who go wherever they go, have different conversations in different places. Let's make sure we normalize this conversation and we make it, just like the way men, for example, talk about football every now and then. No one wants men to go and sit down and talk about football. Let's have this FG discussion and also conversations on day-to-day. Also, about the numbers, you talked about the male champions. Yes. In West Pokot, we do not work with men only. We also work with in-school and out-of-school children. We work with survivors of FGM. We work with women in different groups. We work with boys. We work with everyone. If you want to see more about our work, you can always visit our website. Those who are watching, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is Men and FGM, the YouTube and all social media pages. You will be able to watch testimonies of survivors of FGM, the testimonies of children. You will be able to read about what we have been doing over the years. And I think in Samburu and West Pokot, so I believe the law is working, but we need to see